For generations, Bentley has ruled the world of luxury saloons by being bigger, faster, and louder than the competition.
It's beautiful, it's luxurious, it's fast, and it's expensive. That's rarefied air.
For over a decade, the Continental GT has been the brand's signature machine. Once it was the fastest four-seat production car in the world, hitting a top speed of 318 kilometers an hour, combining competition-level performance with luxury worthy of royalty.
The proudest achievement was producing a car for the Queen of England in the same year as winning Le Mans.
However, the platform has aged.
The car's had an extremely long shelf life. It's ancient.
Competitors are nipping at the company's heels.
The world is catching up quickly. If Bentley doesn't keep innovating, then they'll have a problem.
The brand's answer isn't to reinvent an icon, but to refine it, creating their most powerful and fuel-efficient machine ever, the Continental GT V8s. The Continental GT V8s is the latest Bentley to wear a red flying B. A subtle insignia that hides in plain sight. But the red badge means only one thing: speed. With 521 horsepower on tap, the GT V8s is the most powerful entry-level variant of a machine that's over a decade old. In 2003, the Continental GT emerged as the ultimate dual-threat supercar, exuding high-end luxury and total performance.
It was a real bold move to decide to go for luxury coupe for the brand, to set up the start of the brand and reset the Bentley 2.0 phase of the brand.
Bentley came into this segment, there was really nothing that competed against the Continental GT. It sort of opened up a new segment up there between $150,000 and $200,000 that ruled for many, many years.
Single-handedly, the GT resuscitates the grand touring genre.
It was about creating a really special coupe, 2+2 seater, which was combining performance and incredible driving experience.
It was really a coming together of two worlds, the blending of the luxury world with the performance world. It was a real breakthrough car for us.
Almost overnight, the machine becomes an automotive icon.
When it entered the market in 2003, it changed the perception of the whole brand completely.
Part supercar and part super saloon, the machine quickly increases sales fivefold.
The change was dramatic from where it was, producing just around 2,000 cars per annum to producing just over 10,000 cars.
Continental was a play for volume by Bentley. This was a car that was more affordable and also an everyday livable car.
The GT's success traces its roots back to a formula that's nearly 100 years old.
That special combination of the performance, luxury, and practicality, that's what makes that Bentley GT to an icon.
A mantra where bigger is always better. It's an ideology that harkens back to W.O. Bentley, the man who founds the company in 1919.
W.O. Bentley created relatively big cars. He was of the opinion that if the car is not fast enough, I have to put a bigger engine in.
When the brand reboots in 2003, the team doesn't start with the engine, but rather the shape of the car itself.
It started with a blank sheet of paper, believe it or not. The styling of the car certainly dictated quite a small engine bay, so we had to come up with an engine that would package in that tight engine bay and produce the power and torque that one would expect from a Bentley.
Packaging concerns lead the team to create a unique W12 engine.
The W12 is an interesting engine, and its layout is not really shared by anything else. The W12 is two VR6 engines, which are staggered. When you combine two of them is 4 rows of cylinders. That's the W12.
But age has a way of catching up with beauty, no matter how powerful it is.
It's not a particularly efficient design, It doesn't fit into the modern world in the way that some smaller engines do because it doesn't get the greatest fuel economy.
The once emboldened Continental is now on borrowed time.
When we entered the market with the Continental GT, it was unique. Today, there are probably 10 or 20 competitors.
Younger, lighter, and nimbler challengers have started to steal its thunder. For years, Rolls-Royce was the brand's main rival, but now a variety of marques have Bentley in their crosshairs.
So there's no time for us to sit still.
The high-end, posh society that the original machine targeted has changed.
Consumers can be very fickle. After a while, if something stops being cool, they're going to move on to the next thing.
Rising fuel costs have also challenged the very foundation of the brand.
They're in a very difficult position that they've been very successful in this car, and there's a lot of people who want this car the way it is, but they still also have to keep it modern.
In order to remain at the top of the GT category, Bentley has to do two contradictory things at the same time: increase power and slim its flagship down.
Bentleys have never been lightweight. They've never been small cars. They weigh as much as a lot of SUVs, but they make up for that with a lot of power.
Reworking the Bentley archetype is no small feat.
For a brand like Bentley, very important to understand how to transfer this rich history into today.
Now it's up to Luc Donkervalk, head of design, to bring the classic Conti shape into the modern age.
It's an industrial process relying on an artistic communication language, which is the drawing.
To get modern, the team goes back in time. They start the new model's revision by sketching lines on paper.
It's really important is what we call the power line and the haunch. Those two lines are the DNA of the brand, and they are really present in different orchestrations.
The brand's strong history is a blessing and a curse.
We don't want to make a retro car, but we want to anchor it in the past, in the traditions of the company.
Designers labor to push the edge.
This wow effect you get when you see that car first time is coming from the styling.
Tradition takes a dramatic sidestep towards new tech inside the Bentley Visualization Suite. A state-of-the-art facility where a simple sketch on a napkin can become a life-sized, three-dimensional model. Exterior designer Gareth Thomas is tasked with tweaking the car's classic lines.
Once we've developed the sketch, we'll work with the CAD modelers, and that's where the exciting bit begins, really.
His team sculpts the next-generation Bentley using next-generation technology.
Here you can see the CAD one-to-one scale of the Continental GT.
Within this virtual photorealistic environment, parts can be tested for both look and functionality.
It's really important that what we are designing isn't just fantasy. The CAD data is a really important, crucial part of the design process. It's from this CAD data that the actual parts are manufactured.
Designers can test each particular piece for size, shape, and surface quality. It's like a video game for creativity. The new headlamps become one of the key parts to move the machine into the modern era.
The challenge is always how to do this in a modern interpretation and to keep the design fresh. The development of LED technology is certainly allowing us to do that.
The LED lights and glass covers are created with a click of the mouse. Beyond the face, the body lines are virtually refined as well.
The reflections is how you read the surfaces of the car itself.
Reflections are key to all great supercars. But Bentley's sense of time is based on a classical philosophy.
The shape is orchestrated by those really sharp and precise lines. There's a rhythm, like in an orchestra, where you have one instrument after the other. So you have the violin stopping, and then you have the other instrument that is basically starting, picking up in a rhythm. This is orchestrated by volumes, by concave and convex surfaces, which gives this richness of the form.
By utilizing the latest technology, designers have modified the classic look of a Bentley. Nearly 100 years ago, in the British town of Cricklewood in northwest London, a railway engineer makes a fateful decision to build engine parts out of aluminium instead of cast iron. His name? W.O. Bentley, a man notorious for building the biggest engines around and the most efficient.
W.O. Bentley in 1919 wasn't all about just big cubic capacity. He was all about technology and efficiency.
W.O.'s early engines offer cutting-edge technology. His power plants feature overhead cams and twin carburetors.
It was more about torque rather than big displacement.
W.O.'s genius starts with engineering, but it crosses the finish line thanks to promotion. He realizes it isn't the power of his pistons that attracts buyers, but whether or not they win on the racetrack.
In the late 20s, a group of rich Brits called the Bentley Boys would take their giant, imposing, massive Bentleys to the 24-hour Le Mans race in France and race their cars and party, and it was a whole lifestyle thing, and they would win.
5 Le Mans victories later, Bentley Motors is world-renowned for handcrafting luxurious high-performance machines that win. In 2003, Bentley introduces the reborn Continental with a new W12 power plant. It wins critical acclaim, but time moves fast, even faster than a Continental. What was once deemed an exceptional piece of engineering is now a liability.
The Continental had always been built on the W12, but obviously with fuel efficiency and regulations, we needed to downsize.
Brian Gush, the current director of motorsport, is one of the key engineering members tasked with finding a more environmentally friendly solution.
We had to produce an engine that was worthy of being called a Bentley engine, that provided that effortless torque.
Gush and his team turn their attention to the smaller twin-turbo V8.
The 4-litre twin-turbo V8 gives us a similar feeling with a lot less capacity.
But first, the new V8 sucks down fuel at an alarming rate. So engineers turn to a new technology.
Using cylinder deactivation, dropping onto 4 cylinders enabled us to drop the fuel consumption.
Disengaging the cylinders shuts down half of the engine during moments of low demand, turning a V8 into a V4.
It's part of modern reality that all car companies need to consider smaller models, smaller engines, more fuel-efficient vehicles.
It's got decent fuel economy for something this big and this heavy and this powerful.
The new V8 engine is far more fuel efficient than its predecessor. But that doesn't help the Continental save weight. And the heavier a machine is, the harder it is to stop.
An equal match for the Bentley's engines are its brakes. It's got huge, huge carbon ceramic rotors. They're basically as big as an economy car's entire wheel.
The Conti needs large brakes because the machine deals with a tremendous amount of energy during heavy braking. Automotive brake systems transform the car's movement or kinetic energy into heat. At 100 kilometers an hour, a maximum stop for a 1,600 kilogram vehicle generates enough electricity to keep a 100-watt light bulb lit for an hour and a half. The Continental GT weighs over 2,250 kilograms.
From our top speed to standstill, the brakes have to deal with 10 megajoules of energy.
10 megajoules is enough power to keep an average family home going for 6 hours.
These massive, massive carbon ceramic brakes that you can just dump a ton of speed into them. And they're unfazed by the fact that the car weighs 5,000 plus pounds.
Largest disc brakes on a passenger car in the world. Well, that's another unique Bentley development which we're particularly proud of.
At 420 millimeters, each carbon ceramic disc brake uses 8 piston calipers and is the size of a deep dish pizza.
If you go fast, you've got to stop fast.
While torque-fueled performance has been a Bentley trait for nearly 100 years, if it wasn't for the craftsmanship behind the badge, there'd be just another sports car.
For a brand like Bentley, with this rich history of nearly now 100 years, it is very important to understand what are our DNA.
Today, that DNA is found here, inside the Bentley factory in Crewe, England. Built for World War II, the factory is entrenched in the history of British motoring and engineering.
Nothing would prepare you for working in Bentley. The processes, the materials we deal with are completely different to anywhere else.
This is where the brand's coach-building past combines with modern technologies to create the new Continental GT.
Continental takes about 120 hours to build. It feels very high, particularly from the car industry, but the difference here is at Bentley we make everything.
Unlike most car factories, at Crewe, there are individual shops devoted specifically to wood, leather, and the famed Bentley power plant.
It's about the art of transforming those materials and putting them together into a car.
Keeping all those substances in check starts inside a unique laboratory run by Helen Davok. She and her team use a variety of machines to test each material to its absolute limit.
Our job, quite simply, is to make the best products even better than they already are.
Materials which range from man-made metals and glass compounds to the tactile parts of the interior.
Wood and leather are natural products, and maybe many people don't realise the technology that goes into them.
Everything in the vehicle, from the steering wheel to the iPod drawer, is built for maximum durability.
On the outside, it simply looks like a piece of wood, but actually, when you look at the science of it, it's a multiple layer construction.
There's only so much real-world testing that can happen in a lab. So the team consistently tests materials in the world's harshest environments.
We take whole Bentleys and we leave them in the desert for literally years, and all they do is sit in the hottest environments and bake. We're expecting this wood, a natural product, to last that kind of environment.
High-tech science that begins in a very old-school wood shop, where 167 artisans craft some of the finest pieces of wood in the world.
Currently, we're taking about the top 10%, between 10 and 20% of the top veneers across the world.
The veneers are made from wood that is sourced around the globe. There are 14 types of wood and 9 veneer options. Each layer must first be bolt cut to size before it can be perfectly matched.
A lot of the parts we use at Bentley actually require mirror matching. This is where we'll edge and joint one side of the veneer to create a mirror image. We'll flip the pieces over, create a nice mirror image into the center of the part when it's die pressed onto the part.
Next, the wood is coated with a strong adhesive before being pressed onto the parts. It takes 7 hours to make one piece, and there can be up to 33 wooden pieces in each Continental.
Extreme heat and extreme pressure for about 5 to 10 minutes actually allows the veneer to permanently bond to the substrate.
The pieces are sanded lightly to remove any impurities, then they're ready for lacquering.
What it actually gets is 5 layers of polyester lacquer. We'll actually take the surface. Similar to the sanding stages, we'll use grades of paper. Gives it this very kind of dull, matted finish.
After the lacquer is applied, the pieces are polished.
We'll take it onto our high-powered speed polishing mops, shine it up using a series of wax movement techniques, which actually gets any little scratches or ripples out.
The final piece is more mirror than wood. However, the treatment isn't only for appearances. each coat creates a microscopic protective barrier against heat and corrosion. While some pieces are pushed to their limits outside, others are heated to their core right inside the laboratory.
So what we've got here is a thermal cycling chamber. This machine goes perhaps twice as hot as the hottest day you would get in the desert to as cold as the coldest parts of Russia.
Leather elements are verified for wear resistance.
What we're interested in, obviously, with this machine is wear resistance. You'd expect more than 20,000 in and outs of a car would be something nowadays say that this would ensure.
Metals are tested to remain durable and aesthetically pleasing.
This is a salt spray cabinet which we use to accelerate corrosion environments.
Each wheel is drenched in a copper-accelerated salt spray with an acidic pH of 3.2 for several hours. That's 80% of the acidity in a single can of soda.
What's really important for us is that the Bentley that leaves the factory today looks as good for our customers with many years to come. It's an extremely harsh environment that we expect all of our wheels to perform to. Quite frankly, if they don't meet that requirements, they won't be used on a Bentley.
Once materials have been tested and approved, it's time to put them into production. Inside a factory that not only creates cutting-edge machines, 8 years before Bentleys were manufactured in Crewe, these brick walls were constructed to harbour the ferocious thunder of 27-litre fighter plane engines.
Crewe was built in 1938 as a factory to build 12-cylinder Merlin engines to power the Spitfire and Lancaster planes.
The Spitfire was one of the fastest and most victorious British aeroplanes in World War II. It's a heritage valued by the craftsmen who today build more W12 engines than any factory in the world. Since 1946, the brand has built over 66,000 12-cylinder engines.
Kept the building the same and just renewed the technology that's inside them.
Merlin 12-cylinder aircraft engines produced over 1,000 horsepower. Not a far cry from today's Bentley 12-cylinder engine, which musters up an airworthy 616 horsepower.
We build more 12-cylinder engines than all other manufacturers put together.
The engine block begins its journey to the line on a tool slightly more sophisticated than the ones used in the 1930s.
So the first job we do is we take the engine out of its stillage, lift it across onto one of these machines here.
The machine is an AGV, or Automated Guided Vehicle, and it allows engine builders to move the massive blocks with ease.
We then separate the bed plate from the main crankcase, and we fit a crankshaft. This is the first stage at which we give an engine its main identity.
Each step is done by hand.
The next part of building a Bentley engine, we rotate the engine around and we apply oil. So it's the first time oil touches the engine.
Now the engine's ready for its pistons.
We then automatically build up the pistons. So each engine has 12 pistons, 12 conrods, and also 24 different bearings. So all of those are built automatically, as you can see in the machine there.
The machine connects the piston head to the conrod far more precisely than a human.
When they finish the process, this will have a complete set of pistons. One of the main difference, as you can see, if you look on the top of one of the pistons, it's not flat. What it means is that we can get the best compression ratio on the engine itself.
The higher the compression ratio, the better the fuel economy. Once the pistons are done being fit by hand, the engine goes through an automated sealant process.
And we do that for a variety of reasons. One's volume, and also for quality. It also gives us a very consistent product every single time. process we've got here is where we set the timing. So what we have, all the camshafts on the top of the heads, and we have these devices on the end that allow us to change the characteristics and the amount of torque that the engine's producing at any one time.
Timing is important for the engines and the line itself. There are 21 stations installing nearly 700 parts inside of each W12 power plant. Depending on demand, nearly 250 engines can come off the line in a single week.
Every 16 minutes, we have a brand new engine come to the start of the line, and a completely finished engine comes off the end of the line as well.
That engine is the most powerful W12 in the automotive world. But before the engine is completed, it must be engraved.
So this stage here, this robot will give the engine its unique engine number. So that will go with the vehicle identification number and make up the history for the car. The most challenging station on the line is this process here. So this is fitting the loom. The looms are always particularly difficult to fit. It requires the operator to know exactly where each and every single connector is going to go to on the engine.
The loom looks like one piece, but it's actually comprised of dozens of wires that allow the high-tech engine to communicate with the cutting-edge electronic system. Installing it is a time-tested process, created by workers who are sometimes generations in the making.
We've been building engines here now for 75 years, so it's really not that uncommon to see fathers, sons, and multi-generations coming through and learning how to build them. Every single engine we produce, we bring it into one of these test cells, and then we run it for 21 minutes to check the power, check there's no leaks, make sure the engine is perfect every time.
Hot testing an engine like this is the equivalent of a 16-kilometer drive.
We value the fact that we can test every single engine. We do it because every single engine we build is a supercar engine.
High performance is only part of the supercar equation.
What you'll see here at our facility is craftsmanship on a mass scale, and we've got a staggering choice of options and colours.
There are 13 standard leather options to choose from, and each one is matched by a nearly endless number of exterior colours in the Bentley paint shop.
We've got a massive colour palette. We can offer a range of around 150 colours here.
Each Bentley will be decorated with nearly 45 kilos of paint. When the body is finished being coloured, it's clear-coated and then baked. Only then can craftsmen begin to apply the classic Conti shine.
The mirror finish is what sets the Bentley apart from the rest of the manufacturers.
Craftsmen use a variety of different levels of sandpaper to remove microns of paint.
It's where we take a normal paint finish and we convert it with our process into a Bentley finish.
Great finishes are only half of the Bentley story. To stay competitive, Bentley must put greater emphasis on sub-assembly than anyone else in the business.
In the rest of the industry, about 90% of the people work on the body of the car, work on the car itself. Here at Bentley, we've got a complete shift. 80% of our people work on the parts that go into the car, rather than working on the car itself.
It takes over 700 outside contractors producing 18,000 parts from 32 countries on 6 continents to supply the Bentley factory.
It's very challenging because actually you're your own supplier. If things aren't right, we've got to put it right. And this is the area we'd start in an area like this. Thankfully, the quality levels coming out of these areas is just what we expect for a Bentley.
Beginning with the unique Bentley steering wheel.
This is Noel Thompson. Noel's one of our master craftsmen. One of the special tools that Noel uses is actually a fork, and it's a fork that gives us this very unique pitch between stitches on a steering wheel.
Each handcrafted wheel can take up to 4.5 hours to finish. And to contrast stitch the entire cabin can take over 5 hours. Part of that cabin includes handcrafted seats.
At the moment we're in the seats technology for leather.
Seat construction is a 4-step process. Cut, sew, build, and cover.
You'll see that they inspect the hide. This will be selection through the different grades of hide that we will be using for different areas of the seat.
Selecting the correct pieces for just a single set of seats can take almost 2 hours.
6 inspection tables on average per week would go through 4,000 hides.
It takes 5 hours to complete a full set of seats for each GT. Every phase is meticulously done by hand. Except for one very special station, where a robot sews 5,000 stitches to craft a single B for the headrest.
If I was going to stitch that by hand, I would say that'd take you a good week.
It's essentially what the Bentley heritage is built on. Very traditional materials, assembled in a very traditional way. It's more akin to furniture making than it is to making cars. It's much easier to use the fake stuff. It's a real challenge, particularly when it's a lot more competitive than it was, say, 30 years ago.
While the interior sub-assemblies are finished, a brand new engine is being prepped for installation. The question is whether or not it's too late for the mark. The Continental GT has been in production for over a decade. In the supercar realm, that is an eternity. Especially in a changing world where fossil fuels are on the run. Bentley's solution? Offer customers 2 engine choices, their famed W12 and a new V8 that's more fuel efficient. Both engines enter production on the very same powertrain line.
We're in the engine preparation area. We've made these engines that you can see behind us. We've got the V8T engine and the big, powerful 6-litre W12 engine.
Technicians fit exhaust pipes, shocks, and brakes. Once prepared, the powertrain is ready to be bolted to the body.
This is where we wed the powertrain with a car. And this is really where everything starts to happen in a car plant, because this is critical.
Just 25 bolts secure the V8 into the engine bay.
When you're dealing with a high-power performance car like a Continental, this is critical. Every one of those screws has got to be to the right tightness.
Monitors record the torque and angle of each screw to ensure quality.
We won't allow any car to pass forward with a screw that isn't tightened to the correct torque.
The engine marriage is one of the key stations inside the 150,000 square meter final assembly area.
The build hall in any car plant is really the heartbeat. This is where it starts its build process. So this is its journey from being a body shell to a full car.
It takes 104 hours to build just one Continental GT.
The production line essentially is very similar to other car plants. The difficulty we've got at Bentley is we mix 3 different models together.
Assembling multiple models on one line exponentially increases the need for efficiency and organization.
You can imagine the material that goes into a 2-door coupe is very different to a convertible, which is different again to a 4-door.
They install the radiator, headlights, body panels, bumpers, and wheels. Then all the natural materials that have been painstakingly sourced and tested converge. One of the last stops is the handcrafted steering wheel.
We're on checkpoint 8. Checkpoint 8 is important in this assembly process. This is the last process before a car leaves the factory.
The latest incarnation of Bentley's signature Continental is complete. But does shaving weight and adding fuel economy make for a better Bentley? In 1950, Bentley debuted the R-Type Continental. Many regard it as one of the most elegant cars ever made. The R-Type propels the brand to the forefront of the luxury auto realm. More than half a century later, Bentley finds itself at a similar crossroads.
The whole car industry has moved on leaps and bounds. So what we don't do is sit back on our laurels.
Bentley's solution is the brand new Continental GT V8s. A lighter, smarter, and hopefully quicker machine for the modern world.
V8s still have their own mythos. People still associate them with big power and fast cars, but they're not quite as prestigious as a 12-cylinder engine.
It's a myth born during W.O. Bentley's day, but today being answered in a very different way.
The V8 is a little less special in some people's eyes, but when you look at the power this thing makes, and what it's capable of, you're not missing out on anything.
The V8s roars to the tune of 521 horsepower, and the machine offers 502 foot-pounds of torque, figures which provide the classic Bentley growl. The new twin-turbo V8 takes the GT from 0 to 100 kilometers in just over 4.5 seconds.
The funny thing about the Bentleys is you get in them and you say, okay, it's 4.6 seconds to 60, that's quick. And then you realize it's like sitting in your living room and having your living room go from 0 to 60 to 4.6.
Continue to keep the pedal down and you'll reach 160 kilometers an hour in just 9.2 seconds.
They just keep going and going and going. It's not the 0 to 60, it's the 60 to 120 and the 120 to 180. They just never stop.
The machine's top speed taps out just a shade under 309 kilometers per hour.
So you have a little V8 with turbos on it, pushing something the size of a small house at 200 miles an hour or near there.
At 100 kilometers an hour, the massive 420 millimeter brakes bring the GT to a complete stop in 32 meters.
You can make a 5,000-pound car do anything you want it to do as long as you upsize all the components. Tires, suspension, and of course, brakes. Something's got to scrub all that speed off. The beauty of the Bentley brakes is that they just kind of feel normal. There's nothing really special about the way they feel, except that they stop a 5,000-pound car the way most brakes can stop a 3,000-pound car.
From inside, the V8s is all classic Bentley, from top to bottom.
There's a reason why Bentleys are very expensive, and part of that comes from the craftsmanship that goes into building those interiors.
At 157,000 euros, the GT V8s isn't for the conservative crowd. However, the price tag is justified by its rare combination of speed and luxury.
It may not be the Bentley way to do something smaller.
The change in size is something W.O. Bentley would have agreed with.
We create a good car, a fast car, and at least in terms of the GT, I think the best in its class. We stick to these basic statements of W.O. Bentley and do it in the more modern way now.
Like W.O.'s first engine, the new GT is a clever step towards a smarter future for one of the world's most renowned British icons.
As long as the downsizing happens in a way that's not offensive to Bentley's brand, hey, bring it on, especially if the cars are faster.